Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour. Hello again, everyone. Carol, Jasper, and I are still slowly working our way south for the winter. After a 115-mile drive south from Indianapolis on Interstate 65, we crossed the Ohio River and then entered Louisville, Kentucky. Kentucky is the 30th state that Carol and I have visited together. Kentucky was admitted to the Union on June 1, 1792, as the 15th state in the Union. One of the things that Louisville is known for is a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. So on a rainy Saturday, October 26th, Carol and I visited the Louisville Slugger Museum. More details on this later, but this 120-foot tall bat that is mounted on the outside of the museum is a replica of the bat designed for Babe Ruth in the early 1920s. The company originally started in 1856 with a German immigrant by the name of J. Frederick Hilrich, opened a woodworking shop in Louisville and became an instant success. The woodworking shop was thriving when in 1880, Bud, the eldest son, became an apprentice in the shop. One day in 1884, Bud skipped work to attend an Eclipse baseball game, the major league team of Louisville. While watching the game, Bud saw star baseball player Pete Browning break his bat. At this time, baseball bat manufacturers were few and far between, so it would take days to have a new bat made and delivered. Knowing that his dad's company made many turned items such as bedposts and bowling pins on a piece of equipment called a lathe, Bud met with Pete after the game and offered to make Pete a new baseball bat. By game time the next day, Bud delivered a new bat to the stadium. Legend has it that Pete Browning made 3 home run hits with the bat that Bud made him, and it just so happened that Pete Browning's nickname was the Louisville Slugger. Pete Browning told all of his fellow baseball players about the young man who had made his bat in just one day. Bud's father was not interested in adding baseball bats to their list of items produced at the workshop. But Bud pressed on with his plans of creating baseball bats and even patented the creation process. The baseball business continued to grow, and the Louisville Slugger became the registered trademark of their company in 1894. Bud was made a partner at his father's company in 1897, and the company has only continued to grow since then, with the Louisville Slugger as their most popular product. This would have been the way that Bud made his first bat. A lathe holds and spins the wood, while a sharp tool called a chisel is used to cut away the unneeded wood. As you can see, this would be a slow process. But notice the yellow bat sitting in front of the lathe with lines marked on it. The woodworker would use calipers to measure and compare the diameter of the 2 bats, cutting more wood off in areas where the new bat was still too thick. Using this technique, a woodworker could duplicate a bat over and over again. Carol and I took a tour of the baseball bat factory, but no pictures were allowed. But the bat making process has changed dramatically. Historically, 4 types of wood have been used for bat making: ash, birch, hickory, maple. Each type of wood has its own advantages and disadvantages. Ash is rated at 1,320 pounds of force. I don't know what this number is based on, possibly wood density, but it's a good comparison when looking for a bat. Ash weighs 3.58 pounds per board foot. A board foot, like it sounds, is a piece of wood 12 inches long by 12 inches wide that is 1 inch thick. Birch is rated at 1,260 pounds of force. Again, I don't know what this number means, but notice that it's less than ash. Birch weighs 3.58 pounds per board foot, the same as ash. Birch is said to be more flexible than maple, but more durable than ash. Hickory is rated at 1,820 pounds of force, much higher than ash, birch, or maple. Hickory weighs 4.16 pounds per board foot, much heavier than either of the other 3 woods. They stopped using hickory in bats in 1940 because they were typically heavier than most players wanted to swing. Maple is rated at 1,450 pounds of force and weighs 3.67 pounds per board foot. Notice that maple is slightly heavier than ash or birch. When a tree is cut down to make bats, the trunk is cut into 48-inch lengths, and then a special machine bores through the trunk, making the rough stock for several bats in one pass. Each 48-inch piece of this rough stock is called a billet. Here is what the trunk looks like with the billets ready to come out. Billets are kiln dried and then shipped to the factory where they are stored until needed. Automated lathes are used to make 1 bat per minute, After the bat is made to the necessary specification, the ends that are needed to hold the bat into the lathe are removed, and then the bat's identification is burned into the wood and a clear coat of finish is applied. I told you about the types of wood used to make a bat, but in addition to the wood type, bat length and numerous other characteristics like handle thickness make each bat unique. With all of these variations, the company came up with codes to identify each bat. Some examples are Johnny Bench, famous Cincinnati Reds catcher, swung a B278 model which is 35 inches long and weighs 31 ounces. Babe Ruth swung an R43 model which is 36 inches long and weighs 42.5 ounces. Ken Griffey Jr. swung the C271 model, which is 34 inches long and weighs 30.5 ounces. Hank Aaron swung the A99 model, which is 35 inches long and weighs 34.5 ounces. Mickey Mantle swung the B220 model, which is 35 inches long and weighs 31.5 ounces. Pete Rose, famous third baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, during the early 1970s used his S222 bat to make his 2000th base hit on June 19, 1973. The bat was 35 inches long and weighed 35 ounces. On Monday, October 28th, Carol and I visited the Kentucky Derby Museum and took a tour of Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. Churchill Downs is where they hold a Kentucky Derby every year. The first Kentucky Derby was run on May 17, 1875. While some horse races are only open to males or females, the Kentucky Derby allows males or females to run. Historically, the term Derby refers to horse races restricted to 3-year-olds. The Kentucky Derby is the only race in the United States that allows 20 horses or more to run. In 1984, there were 23 horses in the race. 45 minutes before the race is scheduled to begin, horses are walked from the nearby barns to a stall in the paddock area. The paddock is the area where the horses are readied for the race. While in the paddock, a judge called an identifier checks each horse to ensure that the correct horse is running. Each horse has either a tattoo inside its upper lip or an embedded chip to identify the horse. A farrier checks each horse's horseshoes. There are also veterinarians in the paddock watching the overall body language of the horses. The paddock is where most people see the individual horses for the first time. When all horses have been readied for the race, each horse, one at a time, is walked to this oval area adjacent to the paddock, where an announcer will introduce each horse, its owner, trainer, and jockey. After the introductions, the jockeys come down to their horse. After the jockeys arrive, the announcer says, "Jockeys up," and the jockeys mount the horses. With jockeys mounted, the horses walk out to the racetrack. The Kentucky Derby is a 1.25-mile race held on a track that is only 1 mile long. How did they do that? The Kentucky Derby starts here. The horses run once around the track and then continue an additional 1/4 mile down the straightaway. The race ends near the end of the straightaway. Obviously, betting is a big part of horse racing, and the Kentucky Derby is no exception. But how much you have spent betting during the current year affects your seating on Derby Day. The least expensive admission ticket to Churchill Downs on Derby Day is $80. $80 will get you standing room only in the infield of the track. This allows you to bring in a folding chair and a small cooler. There is a clubhouse on the 3rd floor called the Turf Club, but if you haven't spent between $2,500 and $6,000 betting during the current year, you can't get into the Turf Club. This is the interior area of the Turf Club. To sit outside of the turf club on the third floor near the finish line means that you would have to have spent approximately $8,000 betting during the current year. Here is a view of the track from the third floor. These are the outdoor box seats on the ground floor near the finish line, looking down from the third floor above. After the third floor, we rode the elevator to the fourth floor to an area called Millionaire's Row. On Derby Day, you must be invited and have a special pass to get into this area. Celebrities and VIPs are known to frequent the area. This is a view of the inside seating in Millionaire's Row. This is the view of the track from the fourth floor balcony on Millionaire's Row. The final area in our facilities tour was the jockey dressing area. We were able to see and pass around the little saddles and other equipment that the jockeys use. Jockeys provide all of their own equipment except for the thin pad that goes under the saddle. After our tour of Churchill Downs facility, Carol and I took a van tour of the horse stalls area, but unfortunately we weren't allowed out of the van during the tour. There are 3 racing sessions throughout the year. Up to 1,400 horses can be stalled for a few weeks to the entire length of the racing season. Trainers work with the horses daily to get them ready for the races. On Tuesday, October 29th, Carol and I drove 50 miles south of Louisville to Hodgenville, Kentucky to see the birthplace of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. President Lincoln's birthplace, known as Sinking Springs Farm, has been made a National Historic Park and a large memorial building erected on the site. Inside of this memorial building was a 2-story log cabin, but as the park ranger said, Lincoln was not born in a 2-story log cabin. A plaque near the cabin said that a tree ring analysis was performed in 2002 and dated the logs to the 1940s, proving that this could not have been the cabin that Lincoln was born in. When Abe Lincoln was 2 years old, his father lost his land in a deed dispute, so the Lincolns moved approximately 15 miles southwest to an area known as Knob Creek. Lincoln's earliest memories as a child were said to be from while living along Knob Creek. And with that, I'm going to close out this video and get it uploaded. Carol and I will be leaving Louisville tomorrow morning and driving 75 miles west to Lexington, Kentucky. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching.